If you're an artist and you made something popular, you'll have to find a way to show it off. And how can you show off a series of sculptures to a lot of people? Aside from making a YouTube video, of course. You exhibit them at galleries. Fortunately, Steven's works are exhibited at galleries all over the US. So today, Steven will make a sculpture that will be sent to one of the many galleries where he is exhibited. And in this video, you'll also hear Steven talk about his strange relationship with even numbers.
An even number seems like symmetry to me, you know?
Why he doesn't mind being plagiarized.
Actually, when people copy my work, I kind of feel like I'm on the right track.
And how he knows when his sculptures are done.
If the answer is no, he keeps working at it.
So let's start creating. The first part of the process is always to shape the material. Unfortunately for Steven though, his assistant Art isn't working today, so he has to operate the roller by himself.
Yeah, you've heard of tennis elbow? This will give it to you, especially when it's cranked up tight like this. Of course, if metalworking was easy, I'd have lots of competition, wouldn't I?
This step of the process is always fascinating, because it is here you can really see Steven's thought process.
It's pretty easy to have a couple things kind of look the same, since it's the same tool that's doing it, the same oval. But if it can flow in directions that you aren't expecting, then it becomes a lot more interesting. You know, each element kind of has to be a sculpture on its own right before it can contribute to a collection of elements.
And while the process at times seems a little random, there are certain rules, or maybe compulsions, that Steven needs to follow.
Well, the minimum would be 3 like that. But then if I don't do 3, I'll do 5 or 7. I guess it's kind of one of my idiosyncrasies. I don't like symmetry or anything that smacks of it.
You don't like even numbers?
Yeah, I mean, an even number seems like symmetry to me, you know?
This aversion to even numbers fits well into Steven's overarching philosophy about finding balance without symmetry. And he also looks at his art as something that reflects the problems in the world today. And notice how he has some interesting thoughts about the geometry of the world. He also has an inspiring way of looking at problems like plagiarism as a positive problem that pushes him to become a better artist.
I don't think we live in a geometric world anymore. And I'm not pessimistic thinking it's all convoluted, but we do end up having a lot of unexpected challenges these days. So I think that's where making these ovals a little more abstract, less geometric, kind of plays into life today and the challenges. No. I never worry about plagiarism. Actually, when people copy my work, I kind of feel like I'm on the right track, that they see something there that has a wide appeal, and it's like they want to get on the bandwagon with it. So, and as long as I keep pushing the envelope, I'll be a step ahead of competition. It's when I stop growing that competition will become a concern. And maybe that's time for me to retire, but I can't imagine retiring from art. It's way too much fun. Look way too much forward to the next one. I'd have to be pretty well incapacitated to quit art. And I will feel a little bit of muscle pain tonight. There's no doubt in my mind.
After shaping the pieces, making sure they're in odd numbers, being content with each one and making sure none of them have hard and ugly kinks. It's time to put them all together. First, he has to line up all the pieces, and it is here you can really see how he can feel the flow of the sculpture in his body. It needs to be just right, because the next step is to weld them all together. Once they've been welded together, there's no going back. The welding is something Steven has an interesting relationship with. It's something he finds fairly tedious, but it is, of course, very necessary. And over the years, it's something he has changed his mind on. Just listen to this story about how he changed his perspective on the effort he would put into the welding process.
One time I had a sales lady down in Florida look at my work, and she tactfully took me into a different part of the gallery where they have the real upscale stuff. And she pointed out a welded sculpture and how beautiful everything is blended. And I said, I could do that too if I move my decimal point over. And then I realized that it's really not 10 times the work to do it to that detail. It might be, depending on where you're at as a craftsman, 20% more. Or I felt in my case it was like 10% more. So if 10% more labor makes it look like a piece that's worth 10 times as much, it makes sense to do it.
After meticulously welding all the pieces, we go outside to see what the sculpture looks like in daylight. Seeing the sculpture outside allows Steven to see the shadow play and how the light bounces off of the angles and curves.
If they put it here, it would pop it off the wall a little bit, which would be beautiful for casting shadows.
But the sunlight also reveals something else. All the imperfections. And Steven doesn't take this lightly.
Although it didn't take long to weld that together, the hard work begins now when you go back and you grind over those welds to smooth them out, fill in pits, reinforce areas, grind again, go back, repeat steps 1 and 2 until you finally get to the point where, yeah. A friend of mine has a rule of thumb for quality. He stands back and looks at it and said, would I buy it? And if the answer is yes, he's done. If the answer is no, he keeps working at it. And I think that's a pretty good rule of thumb. You got to please yourself, and if you do that, you're sure to please your clients.
But Steven did grind it out off camera. And once he was finally happy with the result, he had the sculpture powder coated in a shiny metallic powder coat. And here is the final sculpture in its temporary slot while it's waiting to be shipped out. Notice how the lights create these beautiful shadow patterns. And under the gallery lights, this sculpture will no doubt look amazing. So in this video, you got to see how Steven made a flowing abstract sculpture intended to be placed at a gallery. But if you're interested in seeing how this sculpture series came to life, click this video right here to see the story of how it all began.